You have to wonder. I mean, the calls when you say someone is going to destroy the country and is a threat to democracy, you end up with people that are unstable, trying to take things into their own hands, and I think that's likely what we saw here. We don't know the details.
Well, the former president was joined by his vice presidential running mate, J.D. Vance, for the first time since they were confirmed as the Republican Party's nominees at the party's national convention. Michigan is one of the handful of crucial swing states which are expected to determine the outcome of November's presidential election. Hal Lambert is a Republican Party megadonor, and he's also a former advisor to Republican Senator Ted Cruz and served on the inaugural committee for former President Trump. Good afternoon to you, Hal.
Good afternoon.
Thanks so much for joining us. Donald Trump appears to be actually relishing a boost in his support since surviving that appalling attempt on his life.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the convention, and the energy was magnetic. There was a lot of people there that obviously the big discussion around the assassination attempt, but the fight is stronger than ever now after that. And people are obviously very upset about it. There was clearly security breakdown. It should have never happened. He is very fortunate to be alive. I mean, literally a half second either side, and he would not be if he had not turned his head. So I think JD Vance is a great choice. I've known JD for about 5 years. We were in the same business prior to him getting into politics. And I think, his choice is clearly there to go back to the grassroots of blue collar America. And he's obviously now out with President Trump now in that part of the world, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, that will be key to winning a re-election.
Donald Trump talked after surviving that attempt to shoot him. He was shot, but obviously survived it, about the need for unity and talked about how he'd ripped up his original speech. But when we heard him talking last night, yes, there was some talk, as we heard there, about how he had survived. But it wasn't long before he really went back on the attack, talking about crooked Joe Biden and so on. The unity hasn't really lasted very long, has it? He's back on the attacks on his Democratic rival.
Well, I mean, when you talk about unity, what you're really talking about is trying to bring the country together. The opponent in the race still has a record. Uh, Former President Trump is going to talk about that record. He's not going to shy away from it. The campaign will last for a few more months, and then that'll be over. But in the meantime, Joe Biden is off, hiding away from COVID, and is not even engaged in the campaign at this point. We don't know if he's going to be the nominee. There's a lot of calls to replace him, but his record the past 3.5 years has been terrible, and so that's going to be talked about, and that's not going to go away. But he is going to talk about unity, and he's certainly not using the inflammatory words that Biden has used towards him and much of the Democrats, which is this threat to democracy. They've referred to him as Hitler in the past, and media celebrities have said that basically called for assassinations of former President Trump. So it's been much, much worse on the left than certainly what former President Trump has been saying about Joe Biden.
Although his deputy, J.D. Vance, specifically blamed some of that rhetoric from the Democratic side for the shooting, didn't he?
Well, I mean, you have to wonder. I mean, the calls when you say someone is going to destroy the country and is a threat to democracy, you end up with people that are unstable, trying to take things into their own hands, and I think that's likely what we saw here. We don't know the details yet. There's been very little out about the assassin, which is a little bit unusual. I mean, in other shootings, we seem to find out all about the person within 24 hours. This person we know almost nothing about, but he was 20 years old and kind of recently out of a technical school, and had very little social media presence. That's really all we know about him. But we'll learn more. And this week, they're going to bring in the head of the Secret Service, which was clearly a failure, to testify before the U.S. Congress about what happened that day.
You served in the past on Donald Trump's inaugural committee. What do you think is going to be his priority if indeed he is elected to return to the White House? At the moment, the polls suggest he is on course to do so. Now, he talked before the attempt on his life of retribution, of getting his revenge. Do you think he will still be motivated by that? Or do you think that if he does serve a second term as president, that there will be a different tone or even different priorities?
Well, I think that the number one priority, I think initially is going to have to be getting inflation under control. And yes, inflation on a whole has come down a little bit, but really getting oil and gas prices lower is going to help out not only the United States but the rest of the world, because so much of oil and gas is what drives prices everywhere. So that's going to be a high priority, is getting inflation under control, getting wages back up. People are poorer than they were 3.5 years ago. There's just no doubt about it, because wages have not kept up with cumulative inflation. I think getting the border under control is going to be a top priority, and deporting millions of people that came in illegally is going to be a priority. And then you've got so many other things that need to be done. Reducing the number of government employees and the bureaucracy in the federal government has got to be a priority. But I mean, there's literally so much to do, and there's the team this time around, compared to 2016, is much more prepared. I mean, they've got a whole group of people ready to come into the administration, which was different than 2016. So I think his first term, he learned quite a bit about the bureaucracy around the government and what it takes to move the ball. And I think this time it's going to come out much faster than it did in 2016.
And what about relations with the UK? He's already had a brief meeting with Sir Keir Starmer. Our new Prime Minister spoke to him shortly after that assassination attempt. But they are from very different political wings of the divide. How do you think Donald Trump would approach the Labour government here, particularly when people like our Foreign Secretary David Lammy said some very rude things about him in the past?
Well, I mean, the UK is obviously the most important ally we have. So the leadership there will be, in discussions with the leadership in the United States, and we may disagree on things, but you guys run your Commonwealth, and we will run our country. But we'll have to work together where there's common interests. And obviously, the wars that are going on are going to be a priority for President Trump to get under control. I mean, he's already said he wants to end the war in Ukraine. He certainly felt that the Middle East certainly was better when he was president than it is today. So I think he's done a good job on foreign policy. He has good relationships. I don't believe the narrative that was out there for the whole time he was there, which was that the rest of the world didn't like Donald Trump or didn't respect Donald Trump. I don't think that's true from the results that he achieved as president. And I think the rest of the world will step up and work with President Trump if he's elected, and he'll work with them.